Now I'm going to tell you a couple of strategies and tricks how to be better at this game. In terms of the strategies, there is no one super strategy in this game which is good. It means that the game is very balanced, and we want games to be balanced. We want them to be interesting for every player. When thinking about strategy, it's useful to first identify what is the bottleneck in the game. So, for example, quests are not a bottleneck. You can always get more. Resources are not the bottleneck either. The bottleneck in this particular game is the number of actions that you can perform. For example, in round 1, in the 2-player game, you have 4 meeples. And in round 5, you'll get an additional 5th meeple. Which means that through the game, you will have 32 plus 4, 36 actions to perform. In a 3, 4 or 5 player games, you'll have less actions. But the idea, and you cannot increase the number of actions that you can perform, it always stays static. So the idea is that to make each of your actions yield more victory points. So let's look at which locations on the board are available and how many victory points potentially each action can make. For visual representations, I'm going to use these diamonds as an indication of roughly how many victory points each action can give. At the end of the game, white and purple cubes will be yielding as many victory points as yellow or black. They all will give you 1 victory point if you haven't used them. But the idea is that you don't want to have any leftover resources. This is very inefficient. You want to use them all. But during the game, the value of the resources is different. Whites and purples, for example, they usually are acquired in a lower quantities. You can only get 1 on the basic locations, whilst black and orange you can get 2 at a time. So I will value purples as 2 points, whites as 2 points as well, and orange will stay as 1, and black will stay as 1 as well. So these standard locations, they are pretty much equal in terms of their value. For gold, it also is worth roughly 2 victory points. So let's look at the buildings that are available in this game. So this building, for example, will give you 2 blacks and 1 white, which total equates to 4 points. This building, for example, gives you only 3. And this building will give you 2 random cubes, and in this case you would want to take more valuable and rare cubes, which is white or purple. So as you can see, buildings are providing more value per turn than basic locations on the board. So generally it's preferred to go to the building rather than to the standard locations on the board. The only problem is that buildings are not available at the beginning of the game. You need to acquire them as the game progresses. You can only build 1 building at a time because there is only 1 location on the board where you can acquire them. So what to do with that? What does it actually mean? It means that through the game, in round 8, acquiring resources will be more valuable than, let's say, in round 5 or in round 1. So the efficiency of resource collection increases over time. And now let's jump onto the quests. In terms of quest, this is the only location on the board where you can get them. They will also give you some additional resources, gold, so it potentially can be more valuable than getting a tree card or reset. Not a big difference, but still. But the key point is that since this is the only location on the board where you can get them, and it doesn't change through the game, the efficiency of quest collection through the rounds doesn't change. What it means that you would want to focus round 1, 2 and 3 on getting as many quests as you want, and then further rounds on getting resources. You should probably mix and match, so if you have a good building available, let's say in round 1 or 2, you probably should jump on it while it's still available before someone else goes there and takes the resource. But the general trend is that you want to get resources late in the game. Now let's estimate how valuable is the builder's hall itself. So when you buy a building in the round 8, it will accumulate 8 diamonds. Because every round the builder stays open, you will add 1 more diamond on top of it. So, but just buying a building, you get straight victory points. But also when you do that, you also have to pay. So for this building, you need to pay 4 gold, which effectively means you deduct 2 points. For this building, you will have to pay 8, so deduct 2 more, but we'll take an average and remove 1. So this location effectively equates to 5 victory points. It is even better than just going for the resources. So building a building is generally a preferred action. In case if you buy a building in round 1, it will only have 1 diamond, but in that case, that building will be activated for 8 times, and each time it activates, you will get an owner bonus. So meaning that it will provide you 8 resources, which is effectively the same thing or even better than straight points. So my point is, the value of this location is at least 5 victory points and can go up to 10 or 15 depending on the reward, because you can sometimes get more valuable resources such as white or purple cube. And when you go there, buying any building is valuable, but you would want to buy a building that you need more than the others. So how to determine which building you need is better to look not at the main reward, but for the owner reward. Now the last location on the board is Waterdeep Harbor. So when you go there, you play an intrigue card, and looking through many cards, I can tell that they normally provide you a resource value of 2 victory points. So I will mark this location as 2 points. And lastly, Castle Waterdeep. That location is a little bit tricky to estimate. The way to do that, I suggest to look at the most valuable location on the board available, how it compares to the next best location. For example, Builder's Hall will yield you 7 victory points. Go into this building will yield you 4 victory points. So the difference is 3 victory points. If you take Castle Waterdeep, on its own it doesn't worth anything, but it allows you to be first in the next round, meaning that you'll be able to grab more valuable location and less valuable will go to the other player. So the difference between the most and less valuable is 3 points. So effectively it means that Castle Waterdeep is roughly worth 3 victory points. Now, locations will slightly differ over time, so benefits of the location will probably change a little bit, but it still is a good option and it generally yields you 1 or 2 victory points. So if you combine it all together, what should be our strategy? First, have a look at the Builder's Hall. What buildings are available? Some buildings are not really useful and are not used often, so if all of them are like that, so probably you can skip that space. But normally, buying a building is one of the best options. Then you should look at the buildings that are already in play and grab one of them to get some good resources. And then you should be looking at all other locations because they are pretty much equal. A couple of considerations before taking simple locations on the board, you probably would want to go to the Waterdeep harbor, because if you go there, you will grab your 2 points by executing intrigue card, and then after that action you will be able to take one of these remaining spots. Now the question about quests. If you have an option, which quest type you should take? The first thing I suggest to look for is how many victory points that quest gives you. If it is 20 victory points or more, that is a very good quest, regardless of whether it's a preferred quest of your Lord card or not. The overall efficiency beats any other quests. Secondly, look at the resources that these quests are providing. If they're requiring rare resources, such as white, purple, but sometimes even black and orange can be rare if there are no buildings that can give you those resources. So look at the resources that could be a bottleneck, depending on how many locations are open on the board. And if you think that you will not be able to collect enough resources by the end of the game, just collect how many turns you have. And in that case, probably you shouldn't be taking that quest. Then, if you don't have good quests and all of them are kind of average, then take the quest that your Lord card prefers. Lastly, plot quests. So plot quests are best at the beginning of the game because they can yield you additional victory points through all resources through the entire game. However, if you get this plot quest at the end of the game, they're usually not yielding as much victory points. So just calculate how many times that plot part of the quest will be triggered, so how many victory points you expect the whole quest will give you. Lastly, you should remember that each quest type prefers different type of resources. Piety, they usually are heavy on white cubes, warfare on oranges, skullduggery on blacks, arcana on purples, and commerce on gold. They all require different resources, but the preference is as I've displayed them. So if you keep these ideas in mind when you play the game, you will generally get more victory points through the game. It doesn't have to be a killer strategy, you don't have to always perform quests of your Lord card, and the beauty of this strategy is that you don't need to remember a particular actions order. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe, so I know that you value such information, and I'll try and make more videos with in-depth analysis of other worker placement games. Have a good day!